I'm your host, TaSheena Braxton, and I am on a mission to disrupt the industry standard that fancy titles make leaders and teaching my clients how to become leaders and get their own seats at the table. Every week, I will explore a topic that impacts women of color. I will unpack the topic and provide learning so that you can feel equipped to step into leadership. I went from laid off to an entry-level job to a mid-level multiple six figures role where I wasn't the highest on the org chart, but I was able to sit in rooms with CEOs, CFOs, and CMOs without a fancy title. As a mom of 4, a wife, and the eldest daughter of 6, I know what it means to lead in every aspect of your life and to be able to translate that into the workplace. Welcome to the Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. So glad to have you here. Now let's get into it. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's topic, I wanted to talk about this idea of leader capacity. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I have been trying to get clear for myself about how much capacity it actually takes to be a leader, and then how can I teach this to my clients so that they notice and grow their capacity as well. And the reason why this is really top of mind for me is because right now I'm growing a business, and it has become super important for me to have the energy and the resilience and the fight to keep going, and just the mental space to keep at it in spite of what is happening around me. So in today's episode, I want to talk about how to notice and expand your leadership capacity, because I think I've figured out sort of what that is. And this will help you handle higher stakes decisions. It will help you delegate without guilt or feeling some level of shame, and it will help you avoid burnout. So if you have been feeling overwhelmed lately by not only what is happening in your organization, but what is happening externally in the world around you, and you feel like you are being tested and it is impacting your ability to show up at work, this episode is definitely for you. So let's talk about what I mean when I say leader capacity, or when I just say capacity. Because leadership isn't just about what you know or what you can do. It's also about how much space you have to effectively lead. So what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that you are holding a mason jar. And that mason jar represents you. It's your energy, your mental and emotional bandwidth, your ability to take on and process challenges. So think about that, and this is you. Now I want you to picture pouring water into this mason jar. That water represents your skills, your knowledge, your experiences, and everything that makes you the leader you are today. And hopefully you all know by now that you are a leader even without a title. But the more water you pour in, the more you are developing, the more you're learning, and the more you're growing. But as you know, your mason jar can only hold so much before it overflows. And you know, in a biblical sense, the overflow is amazing. But when we talk tangibly, we have to be able to not only hold all the water, but have the capacity to grow and to hold even more water. So the capacity is bigger, larger, there's more space, right? Now, when you pour more water into a jar that's already full, the water is going to spill over. And it doesn't matter how valuable that water is. It could be the best water, whatever water you drink, Essentia, or, I don't know, all the other waters. I can't think of any of the waters right now. But whatever your water of choice is, it does not matter how valuable it is. When your capacity is maxed out, there is nothing more that can be absorbed. There's nothing more that can be retained. It is going to overflow. This is exactly what happens when you hit your leadership capacity limit. When you're still learning, you're still gaining skills, and you're still taking on challenges, if you don't expand your capacity to actually hold all of that stuff, if you don't make room and space mentally, emotionally, physically to be able to take in all of that learning and training and be able to actually use it, you are going to start feeling overwhelmed, burnout, and stuck. And I know for me, like I'm taking on a lot of different trainings and I have multiple coaches around me, and there's a lot of things coming at me, literally. Like growing a business is the thing that makes you look at yourself in such a deep way, and it makes you just understand how truly you need to heal, how you need to expand, how you need to just like, there's some things to button up. You're not as, ready and put together as you thought you were, because in the corporate environment, there's a path and you go up and you go higher or you go across and you get more responsibility. And a business is not the same. There's so much you have to learn, and you actually have to learn it all and all facets of your business, because there is no like a position for every role or for every task that needs to happen in the organization. So it's truly been eye-opening for me. And so I know that there are moments when I get to the point of overwhelm and burnout. There's points when there's so much information coming at me that I'm stuck and I'm like, shoot, how do I move forward? So if we go back to this analogy, what I learned was that you can't just add more water to your mason jar. Yeah, there's more skills, there's more things that you're getting, there's more degrees, there's more training, there's more all the things. But if you don't get a bigger jar, it's going to overflow and you're going to miss things. You're going to lose things. You're going to lose key information that you need to move forward. And so the point is, you have to actually have the ability, create the space to actually create more space. So when you grow your leadership capacity, the way that you can create more space, I will talk about that in a second, but when you create more space, you are able to handle bigger challenges without feeling like you are overloaded, overwhelmed, like, oh shoot, like this is too much coming at me. Sometimes you have those moments when you start a new job and there's so much coming at you. It's because we haven't mentally told ourselves that we can handle it and that we can take on more and that this is easy, this is simple. It goes back to our thought processes. And so when we make more space, we are able to handle bigger challenges without feeling overloaded. But we're also able to make strategic decisions without burning out. So if I need to make a decision, I have 4 children. And sometimes I have to make decisions between going to one game over the other game, over whatever, right? And so recently I've had to make the choice, like my daughter is in her senior year. This is the last time she'll be playing sports. I don't know if she plans to do that in college or if she will even make it to do it in college. And my 14-year-old has more years, right? So I've made the strategic decision that I'm going to show up for my daughter's events because this is it, right? But it doesn't make me feel burned out, right? And sometimes burnout is just not physically. Sometimes you could burn out in your mind where you just feel the guilt, the shame, the like you should have done and made another decision over another. And so for me, it helps me when I have more space and capacity to make these strategic decisions and not feel a sense of like burnout. The other thing that it helps you do is to delegate effectively instead of micromanaging. You know what? I've learned that when managers are micromanaging, it is because they have not created the space, the mental capacity in order to delegate and lead effectively. I know someone who owns a business and he has such a hard time releasing control. But because I'm close enough to what he's doing in his operations of his work environment, I know that he has not gotten systems in place in order to be able to have some things to be automated. He doesn't have a clear back office process where he's able to get the paychecks out every week, or he's able to ensure that the clients are getting what they need, or the customers are being served, or things are being ordered, like material and resources and things like that, right? And so what he foughts to is micromanaging. Now he wants to micromanaging everything, which actually is adding more time into his day. And so his jar is just overfilling. It's just overfilling. It's spilling over because now he's micromanaging. He's adding more time. And then finally, when you create more space, you prioritize what truly matters without spreading yourself too thin. So in the example of this gentleman that I know, if he learns to prioritize and only do the most important things, man, he would do so much better at not feeling spread thin. Because when you spread thin, like, think about it. If I feel like first of all, it comes from my thoughts. What am I making about this situation, right? And then whatever I'm making about this situation, if I feel like, damn, I'm being spread too thin, now I'm going to go into, I need to micromanage everything because I need to figure out, why am I being spread too thin? What is going on? What is happening? Then I start being burned out. Now I feel overloaded. It's just a never ending cycle because I have, one, created a thought in my mind about what it means, but two, oftentimes we just don't have the systems in place to help us and guide us and to be our support. Like they're saying, AI is like our administrative assistant sometimes. Well, I think having systems in place is also like your co-lead, right? And so having the opportunity or having the ability to create these systems will help you in the long run. It may take a lot of upfront legwork, but in the end, it's so much better. So my question to you is, how much water do you have, or how big is your jar? Like, it isn't just how much water you have. We know that, right? Your jar has to literally expand. And so when I talk about, what's your leadership capacity and improving that, I want to make sure that you don't feel like leadership is having you in survival mode or you feel like you're drowning. I want it to feel like you're growing, you're making an impact, that there's so much ease and just fulfillment in what you're doing, especially as a leader. So let me share some examples of what this looks like day to day when you are at your leadership capacity. So I shared some examples already, but here are two other ones, or three. I have three in my head right now. So the first example is that you are spending 15 minutes deciding how to respond to an email. Have you anybody agree with me on this? Anybody have relate to this? Like, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, how should I respond to this email? Oh no, I shouldn't say this. Oh no, I shouldn't say that. Oh no, I gotta include this. Oops, I forgot the attachment. 15 minutes. You are stuck or frozen and you are having a hard time making a choice on what you should respond, how you should respond, what decision you should make. And you start having decision fatigue and your brain becomes exhausted. You start to be unable to think strategically. And instead of making a clear choice, you start overthinking. I just said you start overthinking. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. You start overthinking. And then because you're in an overthinking mode, you start to ask everybody and their mama for validation on what you are supposed to send, right? You're checking in with them because you want some permission or you want validation or approval on thinking what you should actually say and do. Now, I'm not saying you cannot be thoughtful about how you respond, but the difference is, how much time is it taking you? And is it making you spin out or making you shut down or procrastinate before you move forward? So ask yourself those questions. Is it making me spin out, shut down, or procrastinate? That's how I know I'm at my leader capacity. The second example is when you are being reactive. So if you are staying stuck in survival mode where you spend your whole day handling all these small issues, like you're putting out fires all day, and then when you have to tackle the big stuff, you are already exhausted. Well, when you are reactive, you are responding to the demands of the external environment versus being proactive and following a vision that you have for yourself, for your team, or anybody else, right? Your children, your family, whatever it is. You know the external environment is in control when you feel depleted in your capacity and when your calendar is stacked with meetings. You can barely keep up with work, so you come in early or you stay late, and maybe you work after hours at home or on the weekends. And instead of leading intentionally, you are playing catch up all day long. This is a way that you know, my capacity as a leader may be in trouble right now. And then the last example I have is when you start feeling some level of resentment. Have you ever had those moments when you wake up and you are already tired? Or it isn't just Mondays that you dread, but it's every day. And let's not even take time off, because if you actually set the time aside to take the time off, you start to feel guilty and you feel like you are behind. If this is you, you will start feeling resentment that you don't have any time for yourself, for your family, that you can't keep up, that you are like falling behind. You have resentment to the other people you work with, your boss or somebody else. You have probably reached your capacity as a leader. Now, when you don't have enough capacity as a leader, who gets impacted? Your team, your career. Your career will be impacted. And of course, your well-being, your sense of safety, your sense of security will feel it. So how do we solve for this? So let me tell you about a time when I personally hit a leadership capacity wall. So it was the pandemic. So a couple of years ago, I was homeschooling kids. I was working a 9 to 5, and I was attending school to get my master's degree. Okay, so I decided to be the old lady that went back to school to get her college degree. Now, when I applied and got accepted, I didn't know a pandemic was coming up. Okay, so don't get me wrong. It wasn't like I was crazy and I was just like, oh yeah, I could do it all. But it happened. And I was literally trying my best to keep up with all of it. I started to find myself being very overwhelmed. But as a Black woman, one thing we have learned is that we have to keep going. We cannot fail. We cannot give up. And so I did. I kept going. And I was trying to manage and juggle a lot of different things at the same time. But there was a day that came when I was on a call and my son was on one of the laptops that I had as an extra. I was on the desktop computer. Another child had a iPad, right? Well, my youngest son had my laptop and he broke my laptop screen. I remember him saying, uh-oh, and I look over because I'm on a conference call at this time and I realize, no, this boy didn't. So I put the phone, I actually cut the camera off on the Zoom call and I put it on mute and I looked at him and I was so upset. I was so angry, right? I realized at that moment that I was at my full capacity. I could not do it anymore. I was burned out. I was overwhelmed. And I was hustling, y'all, at this time to get to the next level, which eventually paid off. But by the time I got there, I was tired. And it was no way that I could show up fully in that moment after that happened. But it was a representation. What it taught me was it was a representation of how overall I was doing during that time. I was giving a little bit to everything, but wasn't fully myself because of the exhaustion that I felt. And when I realized that everything needed to change or I was not going to make it, I started to make those necessary shifts that I needed, starting in that moment with telling my colleagues that I couldn't stay on the call and that I had to attend to my son and his needs in that moment. That's what I needed to do, right? I had to choose myself first, right? I couldn't just keep going like I was, and I had to find the space to keep up with what I needed to. But at that same time, I needed to do it in a way where I was pacing myself so I wouldn't become completely burnt out, because there was no way that I was going to quit school, or I was going to stop showing up to work like I was, or stop, going after my goals. I am a high achieving, ambitious woman, and there was no way I was going to stop. So I literally had to start thinking of ways after this moment to start to take care of myself so that I did have the capacity to do the things that I needed to do. Now, if you are a parent, first and foremost, that is what you need to take care of, which are your kids. But there is also needing your job in order to take care of your kids, right? So I thought of what my ideal state would look like, and I want you right now to imagine what it would look like for you. So what would it look like if you can walk into a high stakes situation and you were not overwhelmed? I like to say, you always are ready, so you don't have to get ready. I remember my retail store days when I worked in retail, and people would scramble when there was going to be like a store visit with the district manager, and they were going to walk through and check out the store, and they were like trying to get everything together. And I used to think, like, if you are always ready, you ain't got to get ready, right? This is what it looks like to always be on point in your systems and your processes, so that you don't have to worry about having the capacity or feeling overwhelmed when a district manager walks through your store. Or what would it look like if you were able to make decisions faster and with confidence? So for me, I had to have a process for how I was going to make decisions so that I wasn't rehearsing it in my head over and over like this hamster wheel and not being able to move forward. So the way it looked like for me was like, if this, then that, or from this to that, or if this happens, then I would do this, right? I had these contingencies for my own life, right? I have that contingency for my life right now. If my daughter has a game, I am going to go to her game even over my other kids' games, because I only have so much time left, right? I want you to be able to make decisions like that. Or another way that we could think about it is, what would it look like if you delegated and deprioritize things without guilt? We should stop just having a to-do list. We need to have a not to-do list. We need to have a list of these are the people who can back me up. I know in retail, we always had to have like a backup person before we went on lunch, right? And I think about this all the time. It's like, do we have those backup people when we have to head out, or when we need a break, or when we got to take a vacation? Who are those people? I want you to start feeling like you're not, like, I don't want you to feel so much guilt where you feel like you're putting a whole bunch of stuff on other people, or that it's weak to be delegating stuff. I want you to feel confident in asking for help and being able to say, nope, I cannot do this. No is a complete sentence, and sometimes no feels so good. And then ask yourself the question, what would it be like if I actually have time for self-care without having to sacrifice my effectiveness as a leader? I think there are times when we feel like, if you take a day off, if you take some vacation, if you go get your nails done, if you get a massage, if you take the time to take a nap in the middle of the day, especially if you work from home, take a nap, go for a walk, go get the sun, go look at the sun, whatever, walk your dog, whatever it is, like, it doesn't take away from you being effective as a leader when you have learned to grow your leader capacity. These are the things that happen that you have the time for and you're able to do when you grow your leadership capacity. You will stop working harder or believing you have to, and you would just feel like I don't really have to do all of these things, right? And you're just going to start working smarter and more strategically so that leadership doesn't feel like survival mode, right? We lose our leadership capacity when the thought says, I'm in survival mode. I just got to keep going. I just got to do it versus I get to do this and this is amazing, right? So I have identified 3 things that leaders need to do to master at in order to grow their capacity as a leader. Okay. And you've kind of heard, a little bit of hints at it before. I've already talked about it. So the first thing is you need to delegate. Full stop, delegate. You do not have to do it all. You do not get more gold stars when you do it all. It's time for you to delegate. If your calendar is filled with tasks instead of strategy, you are operating at your limit. So I want you to identify one thing this week you can delegate to free up mental space so you can be strategic, so you aren't being that micromanager and you're trying to do it all and be all in the weeds. And instead, you could look kind of high level up and you could understand everything that's happening. When I think of it, it just came to me when I think of being strategic, I think about how the best practice of putting a puzzle together is start with the outside and put the outside together. That's what I mean. That's the strategy. Let me get all the outside pieces together, the framing, the corners, and then I understand big picture how it comes together and work internally. And that's when the people, that work for you or support you are able to do more of those tasks. So especially as a leader. So think about it. If you have more tasks and strategies on your calendar, you need to delegate. The second thing is I want you to set your own decision-making framework. So if you struggle with making decisions and you have decision fatigue because there's a lot of small fires you're putting out all day, I want you to create a framework for making quicker decisions. Ask yourself, does this align with my goals? Is this urgent or important? And who else can handle this? Like I mentioned before, I like to use from 2 shifts in my decision-making thoughts because it helps me have a broader view of what I want to see myself experiencing now to embody in the future. And so if I want to experience some level of calm right now, then in the future, I am able to embody leadership from a calm place, which puts me in the position to be very strategic. So it all comes together full circle. And then the third thing is to set boundaries. Girl, you need some boundaries. Leadership is not about running yourself to the ground. If anybody told you that, they lied to you, because we are not talking about continuing to just go, 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 go. We're not talking about hustle. We are not talking about team no sleep. We are not talking about all of that. Again, you do not get any gold stars for keep going and just being able to do it all. So identify one boundary you need to set this week, whether it's blocking off time for deep work, whether it's saying no to extra meetings, or if you're listening to this and it's lunchtime, girl, go take your lunch break. You should not be listening to the podcast at the same time you are working and you have not eaten. I want you to go eat, and you can listen to me while you eat. So here's what I want you to remember from today's episode. Leadership capacity is not about working harder. It's about creating space for better decisions, for delegation, and to create an impact. You have all the permission that you need to let go of tasks that don't require your unique leadership. And if you don't protect your energy, no one else will. It's time for you to grow your leadership so you can become a better leader in the future. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like, follow, and leave a comment. Share with your friends, family members, and other women of color leaders. Inside my one-on-one leadership coaching program, I will help you become the leader that you want to be with work-life integration and peace. By tapping into networks, growing your visibility and confidence, you will go from untapped, unseen, and underrepresented to attracting opportunities to take your career and your life to the next level. I use an equity-centered lens in my approach so that you feel seen, safe, empowered, excited, and committed to attract, create, and land opportunities in an unconventional way. To work with me, join my email newsletter, or to learn more about me, click the links in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to being your coach. See you next week.